Okay, welcome. Thank you all for being here. You're such a quiet group, while the rest of us sit up front here and kind of share jokes and make the time pass. So I appreciate you all being here. My name is Deanne Conrad. I'm the Community Relations Supervisor for the district, and it is our goal in our Community Education Department to offer programs such as these that can benefit parents and help you understand some of the things that are going on in your schools today. And so we have gathered an expert panel, which you see before you here. I'm not sure if they'll be on their best behavior tonight or if you'll get in on some of the jokes too. I don't know. But our intent tonight is to have them present their information and then make time for questions and answers. So if you come across a question, we encourage you to write it down or keep it in your head, and I'll come around with a microphone. We are recording this, so I do wish to have you use the microphone so we can record the question and the answer at the same time. We want this to be beneficial to you, so please feel free that any question is on the table. You're welcome to ask any question, and our experts here certainly will have the answer. I know they will. Our Director of Assessment, Technology, and Information is Bob Jensen, and he oversees the technology department and the implementation of the Chromebooks in our schools. Then we have Wade Hellison on the end. He is an instructional coach. Deb Wolf is also an instructional coach and one of the early adopters. Actually, both these folks are early adopters in terms of the technology in our district. And Rod Knock is next to them in the blue pullover. And Rod is our technology integration facilitator, I believe is the title. So these are the people who know all of the answers. And we welcome you, we welcome them, and I will have them get started.
Well, welcome. My name is Wade Hellison. I'm going to start just with answering the question, what exactly is a Chromebook? Since this is Chromebook 101, we're going to talk just a little bit about the Chromebooks themselves. First of all, we have a lot of people kind of ask me questions about, what is it? Is it a Chrome? Is it a laptop? Is it a computer? Is it a tablet? What exactly is it? Well, a Chromebook runs on what's called Google Chrome OS. So a typical computer, a Windows-based computer or a PC, runs on Windows operating system. And like a Mac computer runs on Mac operating system, a Chromebook doesn't run on either of those operating systems. It runs on what's called a Chrome OS, which is a very light version of an operating system that really is simplified to only using the web. So if you've heard of the Chrome web browser, which compares with Safari or Internet Explorer, basically a Chrome operating system only runs that Chrome browser. And so within that Chrome browser, everything is done on the web. And Deb will explain some things that you can also do offline, where you can save documents and pictures and things like that, and actually save some things to the machine itself. But most of the work that we do on a Chromebook is online. And so it's all done through this Chrome operating system. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what this device is and what it does. It looks much like a laptop and feels much like a laptop. Chromebook Care, first of all, we're going to just talk about a few things. First of all, one of the main things that we want as teachers in the school district is that our goal is that everybody will have a charged working device as much as possible. And for that to happen, we encourage students and parents and anyone who's using these devices to take some proper care with these devices. So we'll start with transporting. Rod, can I borrow your Chromebook? This is one of the Chromebooks that the students will have. So just a few things that we want to encourage is that you do use a padded or some kind of a carrying case or a backpack, backpack that is designed to carry this. Don't carry it opened like we just did right here. One of the benefits of Chromebooks is you can close them and move it around and you can open it right back up and start from where you left off. It doesn't power down. It goes to sleep much like an iPad does. So if I open it up with both hands, it will come back right where we left off. One of the things that high schoolers, middle schoolers might tend to do is try to put it into their backpack with lots of other stuff, and we discourage that. We would like you to put it into a case just by itself, because if you start putting books and heavy things, objects on top of it, gym shoes, whatever, these screens are fairly flimsy, and so they tend to break with those kinds of things. When students are using these devices, we would encourage them to place it on a clean, level surface, a desktop that's not full of other things. Don't rest it on top of books or other kinds of things. Don't use while walking, and this is something that it tends to happen. People try to carry a Chromebook, have it open, and they're walking, trying to do two things at once. I've been known to be guilty of that from time to time as well, but we would really discourage doing those kinds of things with a Chromebook. And one other comment that we've gotten about some of the screens that have been broken is due to the fact that they get opened with one hand rather than two hands. Because these screens are a little bit more flimsy than a common laptop, it's best to open them with two hands. Basically, for storing these devices, we would just encourage that they get powered down completely, and to power them down, it's a simple task of pressing the power button and holding it, and it will power down. And if you need to power it back on, one of the wonderful things about a Chromebook is that it powers back up in usually under about 10 seconds. So the benefits of these machines on and off and not wasting very much time, whereas a typical laptop can take several minutes sometimes to completely power back on and get loaded to be able to be used. And then if they come to school fully charged, if they get plugged in at night every night and then come back to school fully charged, then they'll be ready to go throughout the entire day. So that's what we would like to see. As far as cleaning, the screen itself, you can use a soft, dry microfiber cloth like this. You can also get the pre-moistened like eyeglasses, things to clean the screens, but do not use like Windex or water or other things on the screen. We just want to use those things that are specifically designed to clean the screens and keep them clean. I know I just talked to a 5th grade teacher who said over break he just went in and just cleaned all of the Chromebook screens in his classroom to get them ready for the new year. And they do that from time to time in the elementary buildings. I know as students get older, they leave that responsibility more up to the students to get them cleaned.
Which one?
I just, there you go.
Okay. So why, microphone, why use the Chromebook? What does it do? Well, one of the advantages of the Chromebook, besides the fact that it turns on in under 10 seconds, is that it is web ready with all of the programs, essentially, that our students will use productively. So if you think of a typical laptop, a Windows laptop, you might be using Microsoft Office with Word and Excel and PowerPoint. Google has a similar productivity suite for the applications that our students are going to use. So instead of Microsoft Word, they would be using Google Documents. It looks very, very similar to Word, and one of the things that we want to encourage and teach our students is that they learn how to use different programs that look similar to each other, but as they change, that the students can find, oh, I used to edit it this way, and now I edit it this way. And I used to do a bold or an underline this way. Well, I know that I can, I just have to find it. So we use Google Docs instead of Microsoft Word. We would use Google Sheets instead of Excel. and Google Presentation instead of PowerPoint. But again, they look very, very similar. All of the documents that our students produce then are saved in the cloud. So each student has their own spot in the cloud. I don't know where exactly in the cloud it is, but they have 35, is that right? Gigabytes of space, which is a significant amount of space for them to store their documents. The advantage of that is that our students, especially at the middle school and the high school, in the past, they would save their documents to our shared folder at school. And they would only have access to those documents at school unless they brought a USB drive or something and they were transporting back and forth. And we struggled a lot. I'm a former high school teacher with students wanting to work on things, but they forgot them at home, or they forgot to download it at school and take it home. And now, since their documents are in the cloud, they have 24/7 access, whether they're at school or whether they're at home. So this Google Apps for Education is this productivity suite that our students and our teachers are using to create the different kinds of documents that they would be asked to create in classes. There are also apps and extensions, if you're familiar with apps, for example, on an iPad. There are some similar kinds of things like that, although students don't have access to all of the apps. So one of the questions that has been asked a lot is, what if our students don't have web access at home? One of the really nice features about the Chromebook and about Google Docs itself is that it can be accessed offline. So the student does not need to have web access to create a Google document, presentation, spreadsheet. When they do have web access, then it will sync up with their cloud and it will save it to the cloud. When they are someplace where they don't have access to the web, that document is still stored on the hard drive of their Chromebook, so they can work on it both at when they have access and when they don't. There is a short process for enabling this offline, and I created a little video tutorial. It's about 1.5 minutes long. You want to watch? So I'll show you what that looks like. And one of the things that I really like about it is that it's about 2 clicks. So it's pretty straightforward.
Hello, this video tutorial is a help for enabling offline Google Docs so that your Google Docs will work even if Wi-Fi access is unavailable. To perform the following task, you will need Wi-Fi access initially. So the following process should be performed at school or where Wi-Fi is available. The first step is to go to your Google Drive. So navigate to your Google Drive. Off to the left here you have a number of options. The bottom option is More. Please choose More. When you do, you get these other 3 options. The middle of the bottom 3 options is Offline. Please select Offline. Once you've selected Offline, you will be given this screen. The blue button, Enable Offline Editing, Enable Offline. Once you select that, you will see that your Chromebook is syncing. This means that any previously created Google documents will be downloaded onto your Chromebook so that those documents will be available both when Wi-Fi is available and when Wi-Fi is not. Once you have performed this task once, you will not need to do so again. Your Chromebook is now enabled so that Google Docs will function both online and offline. Thank you very much.
So that's Google Documents. And those are the tools that for the most part students are using to write essays and create presentations and to communicate with their colleagues, with the other students in their classes. The next thing that we want to talk about is Edmodo. And Edmodo is the way that teachers and students communicate with each other. The goal for using Edmodo is to actually to harness the power of social media, but in a safe and private environment. Edmodo, people use Facebook as an analogy to Edmodo, and it is to a certain extent. They use the same colors, the same color scheme in Edmodo as they do in Facebook, but students will join an Edmodo class that a teacher has created, and the only people that can join that class, that can see the posts and the discussions, are the students, and to a limited extent, parents of those students. So it is a safe and private environment for communications between students and teachers, between students and other students, and to a limited extent between parents and teachers. Why are we using Edmodo? The advantages for students include the fact that it promotes collaboration. I, as a teacher, can post a question to my class. My students each would have their Chromebook out, and students could type responses. They could respond to me. They could respond to each other, and we can have a discussion that way. One of the things that I particularly like about that is my students that tend to be shyer, introverted, they get a voice. We have those students that love to talk in class, and it slows them down a little bit, and it gives voice to some of our quiet, shyer students, and I really like that aspect of it. It also allows our students to always be connected to the class, for good or bad. But it allows them to, if they forgot what the homework assignment was, if they missed class that day, if they are working on their homework and they are stuck and there might be a resource there. So it gives them some choice to a limited extent as to when they work on things. Maybe I want to work on it during study hall. Maybe I want to work on it at home. It allows them to be connected at all times. It increases communication between teacher and students, or it allows for that opportunity because the teachers can post all of their assignments. They can post ideas and tutorials, suggestions. They can post conversations. They can give students individualized, personalized feedback that only that student can see. So that communication is really powerful. And one of the other things I think that I like about it the most is it provides a vehicle for conversation about digital citizenship. When you, as a student, post something on Edmodo, you're posting it to all of your classmates. And we need to talk about what does that look like? What is appropriate? What's not appropriate? So it provides an opportunity to have those conversations about what is and isn't okay on the web. And I think that's an important conversation to have. So those are some of the student benefits. Wade, others that you want to talk about?
Talk a little bit about some elementary.
Yes.
Thanks. Some of the things that I've seen in elementary classrooms, Deb talked about differentiating learning. I really have seen teachers use this tool to specifically give different students different assignments, so they can create a group that the teacher can see, and none of the students are aware of which groups they're in, and they can assign specific things to those specific groups. So all the students in the classroom can be working on their Chromebook, and they can all be working on different assignments and different work that they're doing, but it's right at the level that the students need it. And same thing, they can assign a specific book to this student, well, they're assigned this book to this student, and different questions, really to try to meet the needs of every learner. And that's been a huge benefit in the elementary school. And there are also lots of things that teachers are just learning about with this tool that I think there's a lot of potential that hasn't even been tapped into yet. I had one teacher that I worked with that found an app through Edmodo because you can go to an app store, and it was something that I think she purchased for her classroom, a $5 app that she purchased as a teacher that she can use with her entire class. And it's just to give them extra practice with some grammar types of things. And so she can create this app, and the students choose some of the things that they like. And so this app then gives them content based on the things that they chose, so that it's very engaging for them, uses pop culture kinds of things to get them, or sports. I tested it out and tried some sports, and so it gave me, in the sentences it would talk about Adrian Peterson or something else, as it would try to talk about the skills that the student is trying to learn. And so there are lots of things that we're learning about this tool as teachers, and using it to engage kids, to differentiate our learning, and to really motivate them. And Deb also talked about feedback. I think that's been just a huge benefit to this tool, to give that feedback. It's private feedback, and it's something that the students can go back to. It doesn't go away. They can go back and look at it and see the things that the teacher is saying, and you could have students setting goals using Edmodo, and they can receive feedback on those goals and see their progress. You can also send out quiz questions. You can send out poll questions. You can have it actually do the grading for you as a teacher. You set that up, and it will grade your quiz for you, and you can use it as in that way as well. So just lots and lots of benefits. Anything else that I missed?
For parents, one of the things that I really like about Edmodo is that you, as a parent, can have your own access to Edmodo. So you will ask your son or daughter for the parent code, and it's your parent code for your child. And then you will create your parent account. And when you do that, you can see all of the things that are, I shouldn't say all, you can see the things that are happening in that class. So you can see the assignments that have been scheduled. You can see grades and feedback that your child has gotten from the teacher. Now, when I say grades, I'm not talking about the Infinite Campus gradebook, but if there was a grade actually posted in Edmodo. But more importantly, if a student submitted an assignment and the teacher typed feedback to the student, you can see that feedback. And of course, you can only see your student's feedback. If there's a post conversation that's going on, if you look down the center, very much like Facebook, where people can have a conversation, you can see any post that the teacher makes, and you can see any post that your child makes, but you can't see the posts of the other students. And I really like that. You get a feel for the kinds of conversations that are happening in class. You can see the directions for assignments that were posted. Yeah, grades and feedback. And as I said, you can see the latest posts, what the teacher has posted, and what your son or daughter has posted. Finally, just a couple of other benefits of Edmodo. It's free to the school district. Obviously, that's a biggie. I believe there's something like, Rod, correct me, 29 million students that are using. 29 million users that are currently using Edmodo, and like 170 different countries that are using Edmodo. So it's well researched, it's well used, the bugs are pretty much out of it. I mean, it's an effective tool, and it's free. And environmentally, we reduce paper, obviously. That is, I mean, that's a benefit, let's be honest. So, Rod, did you have anything else that you wanted to add about Edmodo?
Just that I'm going to hate following Edmodo because I love Edmodo.
Okay, Rod, you're up.
That I am. And yes, I don't know, one of the perks of my job is they get the fun stuff and I get the forms. Yay! Does everybody remember seeing the salmon forms this school year? We're going to run through those briefly. There's 3 primary forms. There's 1 sheet, but there's 3 forms. You've got your student-parent computer loan agreement, the computer damage loss cooperative program application form, and then the permission form on the back. If we look at them, the computer loan agreement, that goes over the equipment and the responsibilities. The important thing to remember about this is that a Chromebook educationally is just like a textbook. So really, if you don't sign the form, your student can still use a Chromebook or a laptop for educational purposes. Now, what that means is, and I will use my son as an example, he plays drums and cello. He loves the piano guys. They play music using piano and a cello, and he loves them. He gets done with an assignment, and he has, on occasion this year, been given a couple minutes. Okay, you're done. As you get done, do something at your desk and wait for the class to finish. Okay? I signed the form. He gets to go and look at the piano guys. If I don't sign the form, he doesn't, because it's for educational use only, which means you use it for the assignment, and when you're done with the assignment, you bring it back. Okay? That's the difference on signing the form or not signing the form. Now, one would like to say that they will always be used for educational purposes in the school district. And I can say that the cello or the piano guys with the cello and piano, yeah, I think that's actually educationally relevant for my son. Is it educationally relevant for every student? Probably not, although really it's great music. But that is that form. Let's continue to the next one. The Computer Damage Loss Cooperative Program Application Form. It's insurance. That's what it is. Wade talked about the Chromebooks and their durability. Considering the numbers of Chromebooks that we have in the district, they've actually held up quite well. But things break. The insurance is completely voluntary. If you choose to take the insurance, then damages, you pay 50% of the cost or $75, whichever is less. And we'll use a screen as an example. It's $57 to replace a screen. Okay? So if your son or daughter takes it and they've got it in their car on Monday, and then they go out and they bring it in and they lift it up and the screen goes bam, insurance, it's $28.50. No insurance is $57. I mean, that's what this form is. It's just insurance. And it doesn't cover intentional damage. So if a student is in a classroom and says, really, I don't want to do this, and they grab their Chromebook and throw it against a wall, that won't be covered. Okay? But right now, if they're in a classroom and they say, I don't want to do this, and they take a calculator and throw it against the wall, that's not covered either. Okay? So really, honestly, it's just like every device that's currently in the district. Okay? We've had laptops, mobile labs, in the district for nigh on 10 years now. Exact same thing. We have had students in the past that get frustrated and throw a laptop against a wall. Insurance doesn't cover that. Okay? Let's go to the fun form, the permission forms. Basically, Yep, you can give permission, or you can say, nope, I don't want to give permission, okay? If you give permission, okay, if you indicate the consent and your student is in elementary or in middle school, and yes, rather arbitrary because rules require you, basically the law requires different rules for ages 13 and under. So rather than looking up each student's age, it became much easier to say, by the time they get to high school, everybody's over 13. So we're going to treat middle school and elementary as one entity. So if you have a student in middle school that's over 13 years old, yes, I know that they should be under those over 13 rules, but we're treating middle school and elementary as one entity, okay? If you indicate consent, your student does have access to Edmodo, email, and Google Apps. Now let me take a moment to talk about email. The email that we utilize in the Sioux Falls School District is held by the state of South Dakota. The state of South Dakota has an email system for every district in the state. Okay? Some districts opt to use their own system. The Sioux Falls School District used GroupWise for years and years and years. But we now have partnered with the state, and so all of our email accounts we call them K-12 accounts. Okay? So when you hear, if you've got a Gmail account at home, so you've got access to Google Drive, the students and the teachers in the Sioux Falls School District do not have Gmail accounts. We have K-12 email accounts. Okay? With that, you get a little bit of flexibility. You get to decide, basically there's send and receive restrictions. Elementary and middle school students are able to send emails, send and receive within the Sioux Falls School District. Okay, so if you're running late at work and you want to email your son or daughter to tell them that, they will not get your email. Because 3rd through 8th grade are restricted to sending and receiving email from within the school district. High school are able to send and receive outside of the district, and that is primarily because they're doing more research and they're also applying to colleges. Okay? So, primary difference there with email. And then Google Apps. If you indicate no consent, your student has no access to Edmodo and no access to email. If you don't return the form, that's treated as a no consent for elementary and middle school. Okay, and that's once again because of the federal laws with the age of 13. Okay? Let's go to the high school. And the only real difference here is if you indicate consent, your student has access to those 3 things. If you indicate no consent, even though they're over the age of 13, if you indicate no consent, we will honor the parents' wishes and they will not have access to Edmodo or email. The difference is if you don't return the form and your student is in high school, your student still has access to all of those because they're over 13, and so then they take on the onus of responsibility when they sign up for the Edmodo accounts. Let's go. If you look where it says account information, that's actually a screenshot taken from the state system. So this is a test account that was set up, and you can see where it says email information, and then the enabled access methods, right? Once again, grades 3 to 8 can only send receive email within the Sioux Falls School District. And then grades 9 to 12 can email outside, and all mail is filtered for inappropriate content. The state has content filters which look at every single piece of mail. Now, that's a great thing. It can be problematic. We had a honor student that was actually applying to college, and her essay was on the problem of sex trafficking in the state of South Dakota. She was not able, we could not figure out a way to get that to send through the state email system because the filter, it's a wide, broad filter that looks at all, and it doesn't differentiate between the word sex in that context versus in another context. So in that instance, one of the disadvantages was I had to tell her, you know what, you're going to have to put it on a flash drive and go somewhere where you can access a Gmail or a Hotmail account and mail it. because you're not going to be able to send it through here or send a hard copy. Okay? But for the few instances like that, I'd rather have everything filtered. If you look, this is an account with email, and on the bottom, you'll see that little yellow icon closest to the center on the left. That's the K-12 email icon. If you have an account with no email, which is what this one is, you see under the email information it says the user doesn't have a mailbox. They still have their K-12 user ID, right? They still have a K-12 account, but they don't have a mailbox. So they're unable to use their K-12 user ID to send or receive email. If they try to go to the website and try to log in, it'll say, no, we can't find a mailbox for you. And the difference when they're on their Chromebook is the K-12 email icon is gone. We put them into a separate sub-organization that actually strips that out. It doesn't preload the app because we don't want to muddy the waters with a student saying, I can't get logged in, and I've got the icon right here. Yes, but you have no account. Okay? That is forms in a nutshell. Let's move on to content filtering. Content filtering is handled based on user account. One of the advantages with, quite frankly, with the Google Apps for Education versus, say, laptops, you would need additional then resources to allow filtering outside the district, whereas with the Google Apps for Education, my account is rodney.knock@k12.sd.us. That is my account. It doesn't matter where I go. My account is filtered. So I can be on my Chromebook here. I can be on my Chromebook in Poland. It doesn't matter. I can be on a computer, and if I log into Chrome, my account is filtered. So therein lies the difference. If your son or daughter comes home and jumps on your computer, they're going to have whatever you've got in place. But if they jump on your computer and they log into Chrome, then they're filtered. Okay? Which is why I occasionally get a call at my office that says, what have you done to my computer at home? Because it doesn't work. Your son or daughter, your student logged into Chrome, you need to log them out. Because right now, where you're trying to go, you can't because they're filtered. And the follow-up question is, where are you trying to go? But account filtering is based on user account, not device. Okay? We began, the filters are based on categories. And we began with the SIPA standard filter set. That's the Children's Internet Privacy Act. And then we blocked additional categories based upon basically district request and parental request. Parents would contact a principal and say, you know, this is horrible, I want it blocked. And then they send that on, we review it, blah, blah, blah. This would be why Facebook and Twitter are blocked, even though that's not a requirement under the SIPA. And then we're constantly updating the filter as we get requests. We take a look. If there is one that's blocked, we block the category of chat and society. And there was one of those. I'm trying to think of the website that it was, but it was for Scholastic, but I can't remember the specific website. But basically, it wanted feedback on their product, and none of the students could do it because it was classified as chat. So then you can open a specific website. You don't open a category. You just whitelist that specific website. And so, you know, we're pretty new into we've had a filter here for years, but we had to switch providers so that we could enable it for offline access, because basically it's a proxy that sends it in when you go home that comes back into the district to run things through our filter. And because of that, we kind of started from scratch, and we're tweaking that and continually adding things. And I think we've only unblocked 2. One of them was the coolest thing. It's called Mahjong. It's like a Mahjong game, but it's for math. So you have to do equations to be able to take the tiles off. Well, that was under a games category, and games are blocked. So a teacher sent that request in and said, we want to use this to work on this standard in math. You take a look at it and say, you know what, that's a perfectly legitimate use for that. And so you can unblock based on specific websites. Okay? And that is it. I know I get the drier part of the evening, but I believe we missed anything, or are we open for questions?
Questions?
I think we're open for questions. Yes.
Oh, hang
Oh.
on one second. We're going to, please. I know, this isn't about starring on television or anything like that. This is just about helping another parent at home who has the same question that you have. Think of it that way.
My daughter, this is great. I love the fact we've got computers in the classroom now. The problem is when she comes home, she's on our Wi-Fi. I have been diligent all of her life in keeping blocks and filters on every computer in the house until she walked in with this one. She's got another account through Chrome, I guess. She's getting around these filters.
If,
Yeah, well, yeah.
yeah,
I need to get into this and either ask you to block. How do I configure this?
the first thing that you'll want to do is actually contact your student's teacher and ask them to check to make sure that that Chromebook is still enrolled in the Sioux Falls School District domain. If it's not enrolled in the domain, you can take a Chromebook and you can set it back to factory. And if you do that, it's not enrolled in our domain, which means nothing's being filtered. So the first thing and I don't want to actually discuss how to, although really you're going to be able to Google it and figure it out. But Google's your friend. But anyway,
Students aren't likely listening to this
That is the
anyway.
first thing that you'll want to do is have the teacher check, because they can visually check to make sure that it's enrolled in the domain. If it's enrolled in the domain, then you'd want to check and make sure that she doesn't have additional user accounts on there. And the way you do that, you log out of these a second. You should be able to,
Is that something you could show by,
I will try, yep. Let me get out of this a second. She would have to continually wipe it. Now, if the Chrome OS has updated, you actually, after the Chrome OS updated, we got them starting with Chrome OS 23, and now it's on 31.0. Blah, 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 blah. With Chrome OS 30 and on, after a device is enrolled, they can't unenroll it. They can wipe it again, but they can't log in without having to go through enterprise enrollment. So what you're going to want to do, and let me turn this around, I guess, this way. You should be able to see then every user account that's on the machine. So you're going to want to check and make sure that she doesn't have multiple accounts. She should just have one called SDAP and then hers. And then if she's still getting around that, I would guess that she has loaded a proxy app. At which point, yeah, and if she has, you can send those to the teacher, or you can actually email those directly to me. We're currently blocking about 256 apps. And unfortunately, they continually come out with new ones. But as we become aware of them, we do a search once a week for anything for remote desktops or proxies, and then block those apps. Unfortunately, every week we find more because they just continually make them. So those would be the proactive steps to take, though. Check that, and then check the apps. And has anybody shown you how to check an app? There you go. Yeah. Well, and quite frankly, my son came home once and, well, quite frankly, he was loading stuff on there that he shouldn't have because he's a St. Louis Cardinals fan, and he was putting Cardinals stuff all over there, which seems innocuous, but I'm a Twins fan. No, I'm kidding. The reality is that I work for the district, and I'm like, you shouldn't be trying to figure out how to get around these things. So since you did, you don't get it for a week. And he said, but I have to get my homework done. Yeah, which means you're going to be getting up early, and you're going to be, which was a pain for me, but it was good for him. And he hasn't done it since. So, there's no magic elixir. It's just, yes. Right. What happens is if you get the parent code from her, okay, you can go in when she logs into her Edmodo account, you can get the parent code out of her account, and then you'll have access to all of the classes that she's in. Okay? Otherwise, you just check with one of her teachers, and you'll have access to all of the classes that she's in. You don't have to do it per class. Because what it does is it says, student A, they give you that parent code, and then whatever classes student A is in, you have access to. So, and that, once again, one of my favorite things about Edmodo, speaking as a Facebook user who gets extremely tired of all of the stuff I have to wade through on there, what I love on Edmodo is the fact that there is no sidebar conversation. Every conversation includes the teacher, every single one. So the student can talk to the classroom, or the student can talk to the teacher. But the student can't talk to another student without the teacher being involved. And so I love Edmodo. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, when he actually, and do you know when he was getting around this? Or is he doing it right now? Well, he won't be using, though, your filter. Because when he's on, he's actually coming through, and once that's kind of, right, he's coming in, then all internet traffic in the Sioux Falls School District is routed through one pipe, goes through one conduit out at ATI. And what happens is the Chromebooks go through that conduit. So as long as he has an opening, as long as he's getting onto the internet, then once he's on, he's using the district filter instead of yours. So that would be why if you're putting a specific block on there, he's not actually utilizing your filter. You know what? I don't actually know. I don't work with it that much, but actually I can ask the network folks that are in charge of the content filter.
I can't add anything on that.
That's my understanding on how that works, though, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
And is it correct that if a parent has a concern of something that should be blocked, if you're trying to block something and you say that it's getting there or whatever,
Honestly, I think that the most efficient way to handle those would be to email the teacher, because you're going to have their email, or you could email the webmaster. But if you email the teacher, the way that we review websites is they do an online service request under that specific website request category, and they can just put in there, I had a parent contact me with this concern on this website, and then it gets looked at pretty much immediately. Yeah, that becomes problematic simply because YouTube is open because they use it. YouTube was a big, huge, it goes back and forth and back and forth. I agree, it can be a time waster, but honestly, the newspaper at times can be a time waster. But you know what I mean. Anything not used appropriately can be a time waster. And the problem that we had with YouTube was that we had too much compelling evidence for how teachers could use it appropriately. So then it became hard to say, you're going to, you know what I mean? Became hard to say we're going to block it because. Yeah.
That is a possibility.
You bet.
That is a possibility.
My concern as a high school teacher with that is there are an awful lot of things that I would like my students to view as homework that's on YouTube as well. And so, yeah, we can block it outside of the school day, but then it also, there's just an amazing wealth of fabulous stuff, and then 10 times as much garbage. And that's the struggle with YouTube, is there really is some unbelievably great stuff out there, and then there's an awful lot of garbage. Yeah, but we can't block it per student. Sure. Yeah. Yep. YouTube is a struggle. And I'll be the first to say I fought hard to keep it because I see the really great things that can be used, and I used it with my students frequently. But I also understand what else is out there and how much of a time suck it can be. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. or the Chromebook goes in a drawer after a certain hour. Yeah. Yep, I understand that. As a 25-year veteran of the high school classroom, I get it. I do.
So my question is about the App Store. The last time I spoke with anyone, there was things that they could view that aren't elementary school appropriate. And I'm just wondering if any of that has changed. Not that they can click on the app, but they can visualize something that's not appropriate, that it's an option, even though they can't have access to it. I don't know if this is correct, or I'm just getting misinformation. Or
what you're referring to is the ability to see an app, even if it wouldn't let you install it. At this point, there's still nothing on that horizon, but Google has said that in the next release, they'll offer greater flexibility for domain administrators, which would be, we have a Google Apps domain, to actually curtail what different subgroups can see. And right now, within the Sioux Falls School District, every student account is either in a no, and it became easier to just name it no email, because the Google Apps domain handles the email, it doesn't handle the Edmodo. So there's a no email, and then there's a graduation year 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, for greater flexibility in what, and the way that we've used it right now, quite frankly, is in the elementary schools, there's 6 apps that are pushed out, and it's there's like a dictionary and things like that. In the future, once again, Google has said that they'll offer more flexibility in that, so we hope to be able to say, we want you to be able, we want elementary students to be able to see this, and we want middle school to be able to see this, we want high school to be able to see this. But that's a wish list for in the future. We've been told it's coming, but at this point, it's not there.
My question's a completely different topic, but at the middle school level, they don't get to take the Chromebooks home.
Correct.
So we've come across, luckily I have a daughter that she's pretty healthy. She doesn't miss very much school, but we did come across a couple days that she missed, and they had homework on the Chromebook, and she couldn't do all the same stuff at home because they'd assumed we had a laptop for her to use at home, and we didn't, because the only one we have is the one that I use for work, and we usually do our homework and work at the same time. So I had to put off my work till the middle of the night so that she could use my computer, and I prefer not to do that. So we're seeing that we need to look into getting something for her. And looking at Chromebooks at the stores, they're a lot cheaper than going out and buying a laptop. But I don't want to go getting one for her to have at home if she can't still access everything. So is it possible for her to have that same account on a different Chromebook if I was to buy one at home and put one at home?
You bet. Any account. And here's somewhat of the difference. When I showed this,
It's not on
with the
there.
different user accounts.
They turn the screen
Oh,
off.
well, anyway, with the different user accounts, there's one that's called SDAP, right? It's South Dakota Assessment Portal. In a nutshell, when they do testing online, they have access to that. That's only available on a district-enrolled Chromebook. So if you buy your own Chromebook, she wouldn't be able to, bring it to school and take a test on it. Big whoop, she's got one at school anyway, right? The other difference is with a domain-enrolled Chromebook that's on Chrome OS 30 or higher, it has to be enrolled in the domain, which means this one I can't log into with my Gmail. I can't log into this with my personal Google account. If you buy one at home, you would be able to. But if she logs in with her school account, it will look identical to what she has at school.
So we'd be able to get the same
loads-
filters and everything? And
It
all
looks
of that.
identical.
Okay.
I mean, the screenshot where it had the mail up there, the mail icon and stuff, everything is user-based, not device. So it will look identical.
And separate questions, same kind
Yep.
of category. Since this is the first year they've had the Chromebooks, and I know that like my kid's the first one that's used that particular Chromebook at that school,
Yep.
but then the next year, will they be getting assigned the same one they had the year before? Or are they going to end up getting one that who knows how that other kid took care of their Chromebook, and now my daughter's got one that who knows what damage has been caused?
My understanding is that they're going to follow them throughout the building. So my son's a 6th grader. Next year, he'll have the same Chromebook. In 8th grade, he'll have the same Chromebook. 9th grade, I don't know. And I don't know that the district really knows yet, do they?
9th grade, we'll get the seniors that have graduated. Those will come down to the 9th grade level.
Okay, so there'll be some kind of inspections or something going on to make sure they don't get a messed up Chromebook. Okay. All right, but for that whole school place, though, they'd be able to get the same one.
Right. And in the same respect, if a student takes a Chromebook and wipes it to try to access it with a different account, that's what you would do when you clean a Chromebook. You'd inspect it visually, you'd inspect it for the mechanics behind it, but then when you want to wipe it and make it just like it came out of the box and enrolled, you would do that before you handed it to the next kid.
Yeah, so staff will be taking care of that issue
Yep.
before.
Yep.
Okay, that was.
My question is about screen time, because we were always told to limit that when they were younger, and my daughter's in 7th grade, and there's a lot of homework, so she might spend 3 hours a night in front of that screen instead of in front of a textbook and a notebook. And I have some concerns with that. Is that being addressed at all, or is that not really a concern for anyone else?
That's actually been being addressed in meetings, because that came up during the meetings for the iPads next year also. I can tell you that the minds that are discussing that are much more in tune with that than mine, because I'm a tech. I'm not really, the teacher. But I do know that they're discussing that. The important thing the conversation has centered around that it's a tool, but nothing is used all the time. You use the tool when it's appropriate. The analogy that I use is I have a Phillips screwdriver and a standard screwdriver at home, but I pick the one that I need if I want to switch a light plate.
Do parents have any input into that conversation? Because when they're
That
in,
would be a question for...
like we said before, if they have multiple teachers who are,
Yep.
and she's in advanced classes, so they're not always on the same team, so communication is not always as smooth as it, can be. They don't necessarily know in social studies what the language arts teacher
Has assigned.
has assigned. So to me, 3 hours a night is excessive in front of a screen. Because ever since they were little, we were told no TV, no screen time, no this.
You know,
and she's doing it all day
I'm
in school,
confident
too.
in saying that parents do have a place in that discussion. I'm not confident in telling you where that discussion begins. I don't know if the principal?
We'll take
would
that
it
one
be?
back, that question back. Because it is a good one.
We have a third grader that's just starting the Chromebook world, and we talk to him a lot. My husband deals with computers and security all the time. I do accounting. I deal with it every client I deal with about security and what to do and not to do. And he had the conversation with us about, yes, we don't share our passwords with anybody, and we had that conversation. Yet tonight he told us that he knows his password as well as multiple kids in his class's passwords, and that they're not allowed to change them. And so then that adds to the issue that I have of, as they grow older and this stuff, does the Edmondo site have the same issues that Google has in general of all that data being screened and put in their database for what's happening?
Edmodo actually doesn't Edmodo doesn't operate the same way as Google. The question on the passwords, that's actually erroneous. They are allowed to change them, and they should be actually, I would encourage your kid. Well, that's a conversation then to have with the principal, and the principal can contact ATI if they are unsure about that. But the difficulty with it is when they were set up with a district standard. And if you leave it the district standard, it would be much easier to hack than if you just pick a different one. So yeah, that was a concern that, like I said, my son is a 6th grader, and he was told that he couldn't change it. And I contacted the principal and said, no. District cannot tell people that you can't. And so the principals have been told that. That's a conversation then that you'll want to have with the principal. And feel free to include ATI if you want, because, yes.
A little bit scary after what we've been assured
Yes.
on privacy earlier.
What's the user account naming convention? Is it first name dot last name at?
No. Username, or the user ID naming convention is simply first initial, last initial, 4 digits. And they're arbitrary digits. And the reason is staff in the state of South Dakota have 3 digits. Students have 4 digits, but the user ID is an arbitrary thing. That's just based on first initial, last initial, and then the next 4 digits in line in the state of South Dakota.
So not in the student's classroom or the student's school, but in all of South Dakota,
Right.
anyone who has the same initials as your child, the next one that comes in line that starts as kindergarten would have a number after your son's name.
In the elementary schools, there's a generic password for the computer labs, but it only works within that building, and that's used so that kindergartners, 1st graders, 2nd graders, when they go in there, a teacher can get them online, because they do typing and things like that in there, but that's not at all the Chromebook. There is no generic password for Chromebook. Everybody has their own password, but it follows a convention. So I would encourage you to change it, but it's not a generic that other people have.
What that generic password is for a formal walk into a classroom with a computer lab set up. So everybody logs in, and you get to the same page at the same time.
Everybody
so you can have the
log in,
same
and we're
lesson.
going to do typing master, and we're going to go, work on your J and your F with your home finger. That's what that is used for.
I have another unrelated question,
Yeah.
somewhat related. You mentioned earlier that parents would be privy to some things, but not everything. Exactly what are parents not privy to?
You're not privy to conversations with students that aren't your own.
all of your student
Yes.
information.
Yep. What would happen is if your student and my son were in the same class, you're going to see all of your students, but you're not going to see anything that Isaac sends because that would violate FERPA. I'm going to see all of my sons, none of your sons or daughters. So
And
you'll see the teacher interaction. What you won't see is, right, if they say, let's say you're in middle school, and they say, we're reading, book A, read, chapter 7, and give me 3 things that the protagonist was thinking about as on their journey. And then your son replies, you're going to see that. But then 3 other kids reply, you're not going to see that. And then a teacher replies back and says, I really liked those responses, particularly so-and-so, and, particularly when you talked about him picking the daisies, and you're going to go, daisies? I never read that. Well, another student submitted that, and you didn't get to see that.
And am I correct that our students, my high school student, will know this parent Edmodo code? Or do we have to? What do we have to do to get that?
It's within their account. When they're in their account, they can go into their settings and they can look up the code. Or you can always email the teacher and say, can I get the parent code for blah, 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 blah? Because it's tied to that student. So if you get that parent code from the teacher, then you're going to be in for that.
And then we can access it through any computer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And it's just edmodo.com.
Okay. Thank you.
Is it right there when you open it up?
Actually, when a student logs in to Edmodo, it's the first.
Let's show it on the overhead again if we
Yep.
can.
So then your student will log in there, and you can get there on any computer. You just go to edmodo.com, but you don't even have to know the web address if you do it on your student's Chromebook, because it'll pop right up to it.
And then you go where to find out that parent code, I believe is what you're asking.
I actually don't have a student account, so I can't show you. Oh, but we have a teacher that can tell you.
If I recall right, it's on the bottom left corner. It's almost always on there. It never disappears from the screen. If that is
I believe you're correct also. A teacher has to go into the class and then click on the student and find it, but I think that once the student is logged in, it's on the bottom left, and it'll just say parent code. So then when you're on the Edmodo screen, you just click. It's going to be hard to see, but there's underneath the 2 blue buttons, it actually says, I have a parent code.
I am a parent.
So you'll click on I am a parent, and it'll say, what's the code? And you put it in. And then it'll say, okay, you're good. You're associated with this kid. What do you want? What's your name? Blah, 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 blah. That's the other thing about Edmodo is that, Facebook also is governed by laws that require that you can't get on it unless you're a certain age, right? But let's get serious. A 6-year-old could go and create a Facebook account and nobody's checking on it, right? Edmodo, you can't create an account without having a code. So if a kid says, well, yeah, this Edmodo is cool, I'm just going to create an account, you can't, because you need a class code to get into it. And then you're not just on Edmodo, you're in that class. So if Mrs. Johnson gives you a class code, Mrs. Johnson sees everything you post. So that's one of the primary benefits of Edmodo is that it is a platform that engages kids and that is quite beneficial for sharing materials, for sharing responses. You can do quizzes, you can do assignments, etc., but it's closed. And as, my 12-year-old's getting rather inquisitive, let's just say. So Edmodo is a good thing as far as I'm concerned. Yes?
To follow up on the apps question and
Yeah.
with the web-based product, when you say Google Apps, is that educational apps only, or is that Google Play Store apps? What specifically do they have access
Google
to?
Play Store is a little bit different but it is the Chrome store. And so there are apps, there are packages, if you want to think of it that way, of like educational apps, but it's just like using iPads in the district. There's good, there's bad, there's ugly. I mean, there's everything under the sun out there. And so the way it's currently set up is teachers research and vet the apps, and then they say, you know, we want, for instance, I think it's Devo, but it's a graphing calculator. And so there's a lot of math classes that said, you know what, go out to the App Store and find this. It's a graphing calculator, we're going to use this. Now, having said that, there are kids that will go out and find other things and put it on there. And then as we get requests from teachers, they say, one of them was Running Fred. And it's the dumbest thing. It's this guy that runs around and tries to, he's like the Grim Reaper. So it's like, okay, let's block Running Fred. And it's kind of a never-ending thing. You're just constantly blocking things. Now, the beauty of it is that if it's something, because it is web-based, we only had to block one Running Fred app because there's only one that actually downloaded to the device. All of the others were blocked by the content filter. So.
Then a question on the Edmodo with missing school and the homework assignments posted and all that, and access to the teacher in the classroom.
Yep.
In theory, then, if a student is home sick, they can still participate in the class, and then the positives and the negatives of that and the interaction and all that.
Correct. And there have been instances of that. That's not as widespread right now because, quite frankly, you can only count on that for high school because the middle and elementary don't take them home. So, but if they did have access to a computer at home, yes. You can access Edmodo at home and you can participate in the class. So.
While we're on the topic of Edmodo, just out of curiosity, you said it's free to the district. Who's paying for it?
Right now, it's companies that are putting apps out there, but the beauty of the Edmodo is that Edmodo apps can only be applied by a teacher. Okay. You can't access an app store with a student account, and most of the apps in Edmodo, the vast majority, are purchased per class, not per student. So now, having said that, I don't know how many apps are honestly being used in Edmodo because, quite frankly, they do things like Khan Academy, which is also currently free on Edmodo.
So there are no advertisements paying for it?
No, there aren't at this, and they say that they're going to make the commitment that it continues to be free for districts. At this point, there aren't. And I've asked myself many a time, I wonder who's bankrolling this thing. Because really, they've got a very nice system. They've got quite a few staff now. I mean, it started small, but they've got quite a few staff. And they're doing it without external funding. By external funding, they're doing it not ad-based. Mm-hmm. So I just keep thinking there's got to be somebody that's bankrolling this anonymously but I don't know.
One other thing.
But there's no ads.
Early last semester, my son showed me something in Edmodo on his account, and there was a post from the teacher that had a document attached. And later on, a week or so later, I signed in under my account in Edmodo, and I wasn't able to find that. Is there, and I went back on my son's, and sure enough, it was a post from the teacher, but it wasn't showing up on my account. Is there?
I'd have to actually see that instance and see. And was it a fresh post when you were going in there, or?
It was a week or two old at the time.
Yeah, you know what? I'd have to actually see the instance because right now I can't really speak to that. But.
Am I missing any hands? Any other questions? Yes.
I have two questions. One is, who should we contact if we have other questions about apps that we want to get, suspicious ones we'd like to get blocked, or?
Like you suggested, going through the teacher.
Going through the teacher?
I would recommend going through the teacher just
at a high
because it'll
school
be
level,
much more efficient.
They pull apps out of the Google app, so it'd be whatever teacher, you could just contact any of their teachers? Okay.
Yeah, you can just contact a teacher that you've got because you can go in through Infinite Campus and you
Right.
have those addresses. You can just email and say, I've got a concern over this app. Can you, submit it to have it looked at?
And then with,
And as a high school teacher, we'd love to know which ones those are that are the time sucks that the students are using and watching so that we can get the stuff.
which was the grandma baked one, but that seemed to have gone away. I don't know what it's called. It was the grandma one. That was pretty awful. You made more grandmas.
It was cookie cutter for a
Cookie,
while.
yeah.
Cookie something.
Yes,
Cookie.
grandma, and you
Clicker.
created more grandmas.
Cookie clicker.
Yeah.
That's it.
That was
And
the
they would
one.
leave it running all night.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you get rid of that, and then there's another one. And then
Yes,
there's-
and I'm sure
yes.
there is, but.
Yeah.
And then if you have a problem with the Chromebook, who should you be contacting?
It depends on what the problem is. If it's a mechanical
The microphone
problem,
just isn't working. And
Yep,
this
that
was-
actually would also be a teacher, because the teacher would put in an online service request, and then
Do
at
the
high
teachers
schools-
know that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That will.
Yep.
That was
Well,
an issue at the beginning of the year, and we just haven't addressed it.
Actually,
because
the
nobody knew
easiest
it.
thing to do with it is to have your son or daughter go and tell the teacher, "Hey, I've got a problem. My microphone
And they
doesn't
knew
work."
at the beginning of the year because they were trying to.
And I think
Oh,
at the
because
beginning
what
of the
they'll do
year,
is
too,
they'll know the process. Right now, quite frankly, the beginning of the year was pretty overwhelming
Yes.
for a lot of things.
Okay.
Our content filter is working quite well now. It was not the case
No,
at the
it
beginning
wasn't.
of the year at all. And so it was a pretty frenetic beginning to the year. It was I actually put a little countdown app on my phone to let me know when Christmas break was coming. Because it was a bad fall. But, everything has growing pains, and you learn as you go, and you learned that, that what a device says it will handle, just because it says it will handle that is not necessarily the case. And so then we needed a different filter, and at this point now, if things have calmed down, they can probably just tell the teacher, my microphone doesn't work, I need a loaner. Because are they high school, middle school?
Yes, high school.
Because high school, they actually have loaners there. And
Right.
they'll say, okay, we'll take it, we'll fix it. You use this one right now, we'll fix this one and get it going.
Okay.
So,
Each high school has a different procedure.
yep, but the teacher would be aware of it.
Sure.
So the student should already know where they take their Chromebook.
And again, this was at the very beginning, and
Right.
it hasn't been an issue for a while, so we just kind of left it
Yeah.
and said, well, maybe it'll start working again,
Because
but
the
it
catch-
hasn't.
The catch is that if it hasn't worked from day one, then we can get that fixed under warranty.
Okay,
So the sooner we get that device in,
okay. All right, thank you.
Oh, we have one final question here.
Do they have downtime now where the kids say, oh, it's down, the system's down, where Chrome's not working, we can't get our assignment finished, and so we have to wait now till we go back to school, and then the teacher has to give them something else to do during class? And
We had an awful lot of that at the beginning of the school year, but I can't remember the last
yeah,
downtime. We used to have it on a whiteboard, and it was pretty ugly because you'd go in there and go, 4 times yesterday? And it was bad. And now, like I said, I can't remember the last time that it was down.
I seriously don't remember.
Well, it was, quite honestly, it was a hardware device. We needed a different hardware device because of the offline, or not offline, the off-site filtering. And we got one that was rated to handle the load, and really it didn't handle 18,000 Chromebooks. It didn't handle the load.
Something Bob said
So-
at the beginning of all this process has stuck with me is there aren't a whole lot of schools that have tried to deploy 18,000 Chromebooks at the same time. So we have done our homework and diligently, put the pieces in place that we believed we were going to need. And then when you launch an initiative such as this and things start, that's not going to do it, obviously it's going to take us a bit of time to catch up with that. And that's what happened at the beginning of the year. Now, yes, wouldn't it be beautiful if we just flipped the switch and everything worked perfectly? I'll ask you to go back to your job and think of how many times you wish that would have happened, and it just doesn't.
Yeah,
And
really, honestly, all of the districts around the nation that had implemented a Chromebook deployment were numbers well below 10,000, like 7,000 here, 5,000 here. So then you extrapolate that out and you go, okay, They've got this for that many, so we've got 4 times. Let's multiply it by 4. Let's multiply it by 6 to be safe. That doesn't always work. So we went bigger is better, and it turned out we didn't go big enough. So, but now, yeah, it appears to be handling the load. It's never been peaking, so it appears to be good.
But do know also that our commitment is when you notice something is not, your son or daughter is accessing something that's obviously not okay on an educational computer, a computer that's issued by the school district, it is important for, we need to have that partnership where you guys are telling us that as well, because these guys are doing everything they can to make that block happen as quickly as possible, because we don't want the students accessing that information either. Right. There are people out in our world who are creating these opportunities for students to waste time or access information that we would not find to be acceptable. And by signing forms, if you're knowledgeable of something, it can be a discipline issue. It can come back and the student can be disciplined if they're using the Chromebook inappropriately. So we ask for your help in getting those sites blocked, as quickly as possible.
And it's always better to be, for us as a district, to be proactive rather than reactive. If we hear from one parent that a site, oh, you're going to want to look at this, and we can look at it and prevent 1,500 kids from getting there, that's a lot better. So we'd rather be proactive rather than hitting it after we're finding it through hits on a filter.
Or, dare I say, someone taking the Chromebook to the media and then saying, here, did you know we can find this? Now, wouldn't it be better, instead of showing that to all the viewers out there of all these kids about how to access that piece of information, if we contact the school district and we get it shut down and not, make it available now and knowledgeable to all these thousands of other people?
Question, Deanne.
It would be easier to have the teacher, wipe it, because the tech will come in and wipe it, because at the same time, then they'll make sure that it gets updated. At the same time, they'll make sure that it gets updated to a Chrome OS that then won't allow that to happen in the future. So, you know what? This fall I got a lot of calls, and there were a lot of them where all I could do was just sit and listen and go, I understand. Because honestly, there were things that were a little bit out of our control, and yet, as a parent, I know that you just want people aware, Yeah. She's just barely older than my son, isn't she? Because I know that my son, mine's almost 13, and I had to actually I haven't had to have a chart for him to do things since he was in kindergarten, and now it's like, you know what? You need to get this done first, and then this, and then this, and it's just a different challenge. I just like to think of it as just another challenge, and they're going to come, I guess, throughout life. But yeah. Yes.
Do these devices have cameras?
Yes, they have cameras. If there's a discipline problem with it, then we can actually put them in a sub-organization that disables that. But we don't currently do anything. There's no monitoring by the district, but they do have cameras.
So if I want to put a piece of tape over the camera, I can do that?
Sure. Why do they have cameras on them? Most mobile devices that you get now will have a camera, simply because there's so much you do Skype, or you do, what's the other big one? FaceTime. Well, FaceTime would be an Apple product, but
Google Plus.
But yep, they'll have them do that.
Obviously, there's some pros and cons to the Chromebooks, and I'm sure there's growing pains, and everybody's got some very legitimate concerns. Sioux Falls is not the first school district in the nation to get Chromebooks.
Correct.
Is there some type of forum or a website where these common problems that I'm sure other people have dealt with in the nation, are there answers out there that maybe we can collaborate with?
Honestly, the forums that I have joined have been found just through other school districts, through their Twitter feeds and things like that. So there's no, I mean, if you Google or if you go to, Yahoo, whatever you want to use for your search engine, if you go and you just say Chromebooks in schools, parent concerns forum, you're going to find quite a few to get on. I'm following the ones from other tech people and other educators from other districts that are telling me, yeah, we had, for instance, Twitter is blocked. And that's because throughout the nation, there's a preponderance of schools that block Twitter because it's been more problematic than beneficial, which, like I said, we haven't found to be the case with. YouTube has its difficulties, but it's used for a lot more educational purposes than Twitter. And so you find those things where people say, or they'll find an app that they say, you know what, this one works really well for a production where they want to make a video. We did a thing where they were a weathercaster and they had to do blah, blah, blah. And so you find those things that may be beneficial for teachers to look at. So they're out there. There's no one specific one that really honestly I'd recommend, although everything it appears that comes out of Leiden High School is pretty good.
Say that again.
Leiden High School, it's Leyden, Leiden High School. It's right out of Chicago. It's a suburb of Chicago. But they've been implementing it on a high school level, and they've actually got a lot of good quality stuff, good ideas that come out of there. So.
Okay, we committed to an hour and a half. We are exactly at an hour and a half. We thank you for coming tonight to learn more about this. Our goal is to have you leaving here with more knowledge than you came with, so I hope that is in fact the case. Thank you for coming. Have a great night.